Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Game and Went. It has been a while, but we are back, and I'm excited to be here. Today, joining me, Craig Kober. I have with me Hayden. Hayden, I don't even know your last name, bud.
Yeah.
But
welcome. Also known as Haydernator to very few.
Yeah, true. So Hayden is a streamer who I kind of caught he caught my attention. When he and Braden, No Game Overs, were streaming Zelda the Wind Waker speedruns, randomizer speedruns.
The funny thing about this is I was not even a part of them.
Wait, was that somebody else?
That was probably Braden Krenz, the two Bradens.
Oh my god.
Which, yeah, there's two Bradens and a Hayden.
Yeah, everybody in your friend group has to have Aiden in their name. I truly did not know that wasn't you, and now I feel a little bad, but also I don't feel bad because I did end up being a buddy.
Yeah, and also, I mean, they did their Wind Waker things. Where I popped into the picture was with the Sonic-a-thon.
That has been a long and grinding road.
Yeah, and then COVID came along and punched its face in.
I mean, such is life. But you guys will get back to it soon. I mean, you have plenty more games to play and plenty more time to do.
Yeah.
It's more of like, how much longer can you last doing it?
Yeah, I mean, okay, we've gotten through, I would like to think, most of the bad games.
For sure, and I think you also got through the period of time where, like, they were popping out games more frequently. These games take a lot more time to develop now.
Yeah.
But we are not here to play Sonic the Hedgehog or talk about Sonic the Hedgehog. We are here to talk about the one, the only, Super Mario 64.
Yeah.
So, Hayden, I've watched you speedrun this game, which is why I wanted to bring you in on this episode. How does a person learn to do these things?
YouTube.
Well, it's good to know that you're only following the trend and not developing your own ridiculous strategies.
Well, the thing was, like, first of all, like, you see all these, like, speedruns, and there's so many different categories for the game. What you really have to do is think, like, how deep do I want to get?
Very true.
And also, what's my skill level at this game? Because there's no way I would ever be able to realistically run the 0-star category because it's very precise.
I didn't even know there was a 0-star category until this minute.
There is. It's gross. There's also no way that I would want to dive deep enough to do the 100% category, all 120 stars.
Yeah, I mean, with Super Mario 3D All-Stars that just got released, I did my first and hopefully only 120-star run, and I cannot imagine speedrunning that.
Yeah, actually, there's a lot of stars in that game that are more annoying if you do them the normal way. If you do them the speedrun way, they're just, like, so easy.
Interesting. Kind of like the one where you just jump off the cliff with the penguin, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, that was actually a tough thing. I tried to jump with the way that I saw you do it, and I just couldn't. So I did it the normal way.
Yeah. The key is, the moment you have the penguin, you go off the edge, you don't press any buttons.
Really?
You just let Mario slide, and you just kind of direct him with the stick, and that's it.
Well, hey, you learn something every day. So, Super Mario 64 originally came out in the US in 1996, and I'm guessing it was the same in Canada, right?
It was.
Okay, good. It was a launch title on the Nintendo new console, the Nintendo 64. Now, I couldn't tell you when I actually got my hands on Super Mario 64 or my Nintendo 64. I think I remember getting one for my 7th birthday, but I just could not tell you. How about you?
I know that I for sure had an N64 in my house by the time that I was 5 years old.
Okay, and we are the same age, so I'm guessing I got it. See, I got it for my birthday, so I'm guessing I got it around that time or maybe a year later. Because when I was a kid, I had no idea of what was like coming out, so launch titles didn't mean anything to me.
Yeah, I had older brothers, so they would have been the ones wanting the thing, and then I would have just played because it was there.
Yeah, for sure. Now, it was developed, of course, by Nintendo, directed and produced by the legendary Shigeru Miyamoto, who I believe is now 2 for 2 or 2 for 4 on this podcast.
Mm.
And the game, plot-wise, pretty simple, kind of like many games of that era. Mario gets invited to Princess Peach's castle to enjoy a delicious cake, but quickly finds himself in danger as Bowser has stolen the castle's 120 Power Stars and hidden them within the various portraits hung around the castle. Mario must jump into those worlds within those portraits to take back the Power Stars and free the castle's inhabitants. An epic quest of the ages.
The important thing to know about this story, as little as it is in that game, is that Peach is a liar and there was never a cake.
See, I always took that as Bowser wrote the note as Peach to lure Mario there.
See, that's being pretty generous, assuming that Bowser is even capable of writing a letter.
I mean, we've seen in like some of the later games, Bowser, has some level of
right.
intelligence.
You're right.
The question is, does his big Koopa claws have the dexterity to write like Fancy Peach?
Yeah, that's a thing, because like the note that you get is nicely written. Like, oh yeah, the letters look great.
Yeah, so the question is, does Bowser have his, thick, meaty claws, or maybe he just dictated it to a Goomba who handled it somehow.
I don't know how a Goomba would do that.
I think it's better not to worry about it. So tell me about your first experience with this game.
I don't know if I remember my actual first time playing it, but I do remember what stood out to me when I was a child, and that was the slides.
Oh yeah, big time.
All 3 of the slides. I'm pretty sure there's only 3.
There's the one that's like in the secret room in the first area, and then there is the penguin slide, and then there is the slide on the mountain, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure those are the only 3. But yeah, those fascinated me when I was a kid. They just...
For sure. And like, did you just play it by yourself? I mean, you mentioned your brothers. Were you like the backseat gamer while they were playing it? Or did you get hands-on right from the get-go?
My household had to very quickly establish some rules around video gaming because there was 4 brothers all fighting for time on the N64. So we had to be allotted like time periods where we were allowed to play it. And as soon as our time was up, we had to save and quit and somebody else would have their turn. And it worked fairly well.
Did you have like the kitchen timer?
No, we were pretty good actually. Me and my brothers, we mostly got along, like, which is weird to say because most families do not have this story. So
well, that's cool, man. I remember that like when I had first started to play, I had the N64, but my only launch title, like the only title I had when it first came to me was Pokemon Snap.
Oh.
And so when I had friends over, or in this case, when the guy down the street came over to babysit me, he brought Super Mario 64 and Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six.
Ooh.
I know, very, very different games. But he would play Super Mario 64, and he was so good at it. And so I just sat there and watched him because every time I grabbed the controller, I was like, 5 or 6? And I had no idea what to do. I just like jumped off things and ran straight into the bombs. So it was just a wild game to kind of experience. It was that first like 3D experience for me. Really.
Yeah, for me, it was one of the first games where I truly felt like there was just like a limitless world to explore.
Yeah, it just... comparing it to its predecessors, like Nintendo had the Super FX chip for Star Fox on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
But going from like, I never had a Super Nintendo, I went straight from the NES to an N64. And going from an 8-bit platform to 64-bit, 3-dimensional with like physics was wild to me. It was a whole new world.
Yeah, that's a very large jump. The way that I look at Nintendo's consoles, at least for a time, is they'll release one console, which is like a proof of concept, and then they'll release another console after that will perfect the art of what the previous console did. So like you have the NES, which, 8-bit pixelated simple games, and then the Super Nintendo comes out, and it's, still pixel art games, but they're so refined. There's so much story in these games. All of a sudden, gameplay is truly a thing that's being prioritized, like Mega Man X, where you have like the dash jumps and, It was a similar thing for me with the N64 and the GameCube, where the N64 was proof of concept of 3D games, and then the GameCube came out, and you had Mario's Sunshine and Luigi's Mansion, Wave Race Blue Storm, Just these fantastic games.
That's really interesting, and I definitely buy it. Because, yeah, Super Nintendo was such a jump on the NES, but it was like, it was a similar platform, 2D pixel. And then, yeah, the N64 was, like, insanely cool. And it introduced a lot of these concepts, but it didn't really have the power to back up the imagination that went into them. And so when it came to the GameCube, they finally had the power they needed to make the games they wanted
Yeah,
to.
that's probably the only reason Pikmin exists. Honestly, because Pikmin started as a tech demo for the GameCube.
Really?
Yeah. They were showing off that they could have 128 different Marios all on one thing existing at one time doing their own thing. And it wasn't like crashing the console. It was just running smoothly. And they turned that into Pikmin.
See, I had always heard the rumor of Super Mario 128 because it was like, it's like how people called the Xbox One the Xbox 720. It was like the double number for 64.
Yeah.
But I never knew it actually started with the idea of creating 128 Marios. That's insane.
Yeah. It was just a tech demo they used to show developers what was possible with this console, and they went from there, I guess.
Yeah, man, and took it and ran. So when it comes to like playing the game, you are probably the person I know who is the best at this game. So what is it about Super Mario 64 that kind of interests you, that keeps you coming back for more?
I think Super Mario 64, out of all the Mario games I have played, has the funnest movement. Just the ways that you can affect Mario to make him traverse through the worlds, I think, is perfection in that game.
I would 100% agree with you, with maybe one exception. Having just recently played the game, the movement is incredible. The fact that you can like bounce off walls and the triple jumps and the momentum, which is something that's kind of been lost in more recent entries. But the one thing that really trips me up about the movement?
The camera?
Well, the camera is a beast unto itself, I'm afraid. It's when you're standing in a place as Mario and like you want to turn around, Mario kind of like walks forward a little bit so he can turn around instead of just like turning.
If you perfectly hit the opposite direction, Mario will turn perfectly the opposite direction without doing that step.
No.
But the problem comes in when you go to hit back and your analog goes slightly to the side. Mario will then interpret that as you wanting to turn him to the side first and then backwards.
Oh, man. Do you know how many times on TikTok clock that fucked me?
Oh, absolutely. I definitely don't think all the levels in that game are great. I don't like them all.
Well, this is a great transition then. So what is your favorite level in the game?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Isn't it? If you need to think about it, I can do mine first.
Yeah, go for it.
So the Bowser levels are all like by a country mile my favorite. Not only is the music the best, but what I like about them is that they kind of introduce opportunities for you to like perform the mechanics of the game in like the fanciest, like free runningest ways.
They flow well.
Yeah, they flow insanely well. And I've seen you speedrun these levels, so I know you know what I'm talking about. Where like you just kind of get to crouch jump across ways and like triple jump, and you really get to like go fast because the levels are sort of on a grid, and so you don't always have to worry about being precise with movements and going diagonally. They're sort of like lined out before you.
They're definitely more like straight line than most of the worlds. Like they'll give you areas where it's just perfectly side to side or like straight forward or back. Like they allow you those opportunities to do more precise things more easily because the camera isn't trying to be, on the move and following you through these more 3D open spaces. It's more linear in nature.
Yeah. I definitely agree that the camera sort of helps you out better on these levels because of the way that they're laid out.
It's good game design for sure.
Yeah, and I think one of the challenges with this game, I think we've talked about off recording here, but the camera, they kind of had to solve the problem by making it its own character, and it's really the only obstacle to making this game like perfect. If it had like a full 3-dimensional 360-degree camera, I don't think there would be anything wrong with this game.
The camera is fine on its own. The problem is some of the worlds don't cooperate well with the camera. Like, either one of them would be fine on their own, potentially. It's just they don't merge well.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
For my opinion, I don't like most of the stages in the latter half of the game.
And why is that?
They're tighter, and they don't allow you to move as quickly through them. If you're not a speedrunner. Like, if you're a speedrunner, you can move quickly through everything because you know how everything is and where it all is. But for somebody who's not as familiar with the game, the levels slow you down. For me, it feels counter to the prior part of the game where, again, momentum, as you said before, is such an important part of the movement and why it's so fun, and they take some of that away.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. I think that that's actually a good observation. They sort of, Mario has always been a platformer, but it's been one of those games where you could just kind of hold right and jump, and then maybe you have to stop or move back to avoid something, but it never really stops you from progressing through the levels unless it's like an auto-scroller, which I guess you could say the Rainbow Ride is similar to.
I despise Rainbow Ride.
Rainbow Ride was not as bad for me as Tick-Tock Clock, but I would say Tick-Tock Clock is one of my favorite levels too because of just like how fun it is.
Tick-Tock Clock, I have some problems with that level, but where it regains some faith back from me is the fact that you can't move as quickly horizontally in that level, but if you're a little bit familiar with it, you can start going very quickly vertically, like with your wall bounces, your triple jumps. That's where that can get fun, but mostly it's a slower level.
And it's neat because it's more vertically aligned too. I think it's like one of two in the whole game that are really truly like vertically designed.
Yeah.
So now that I've given you a minute to think, can you place which one might be your favorite? Probably one of the earlier levels then?
Yeah, I think Whomp's Fortress.
Really?
I think so.
All right, I'm going to have to ask you to back that up.
It's got a lot of shortcuts to things, and I love having shortcuts to things. Like, they give you the normal way to do it, and then there's the fast way to do it. Like, even things that I was able to pull off when I was a kid. The star, there's one on the left-hand side of the stage from when you start, where it's just on a little platform, and you can either use the cannon to shoot yourself to a pole in there, and grab the pole and get the star, or if you're clever, you just go down the ramp and do a wall jump to get to it.
Really?
And when I was a kid, that was what I was able to do, right? So like there's like little shortcuts like that even for a kid who's not super familiar with the game can pull it off, and it feels satisfying. And I love that.
I straight up did not know that existed, and I think that's wild. And that's kind of a really cool feature about the game is that there are different ways to go about getting the stars. Opening it up to 3 dimensions also opens up different routes, right?
Yeah.
Man, this is making me excited to watch you stream this later.
If I stream this later, I'll definitely be streaming it at some point in the near future. I don't know if that'll be tonight. That'll depend on Braden.
So, where do you see Mario 64 in like the scheme of things? I would consider this game genre defining, but I want to hear what you think.
I mean, I think that without it, 3D platformers would not be where they are. Like Mario 64 did a lot of things that they had to come up with on their own. There was no game before it to really guide their game design and decision making, and a lot of things that game did stuck around for a very long time.
Yeah, that's a great point, to kind of have to create something out of thin air, and that's what makes it, I guess, so iconic. Like, we kind of take for granted that games nowadays just feel better because they didn't just get that way. Somebody had to do it first, right?
Yeah. For me, I don't know, like Mario 64, that's a game that is still super fun to play today, which is crazy considering that they just had to come up with how a 3D game works.
Yeah. And I would even say, like, I remember watching you play recently Super Mario Galaxy and saying how much better Super Mario 64 felt than Galaxy.
Yeah, I think that comes solely down to speed and momentum, because Super Mario 64 allows you to build up more speed, and traverse things quicker, whereas Galaxy slows it down and has probably better platforming, honestly. Mario Galaxy is a great game, and the level design is wonderful, but Mario's movement doesn't feel as satisfying within that world.
Yeah, I think if they like remade Galaxy with the move set of Super Mario Odyssey, it would probably be the best Mario game, or maybe at least the most replayable.
Yeah, Mario Odyssey is kind of like almost the sweet spot of fun levels, good levels to traverse, and Mario's movement. It's not as enjoyable to me as Mario 64, but it's close.
I agree, actually. I found that Super Mario Odyssey just felt it was a little too easy, first of all, and it felt a little like cheap. Like you found stars or moons just sitting in boxes. Where in Mario 64, they made you work for it, dude. Like you had to like really hustle to get some of these fucking stars.
Mario Odyssey definitely does have that problem where there's just too many moons and very few of them actually feel special. There are definitely some that do feel special, but not many. Whereas in Super Mario 64, all the stars feel iconic, and like I don't know, there's a lot of people that like if they played Mario 64 back in the day, and they will be able to still tell you their favorite star today.
Yeah. Well, hey, let me ask you, what's your favorite star, my dude?
Ooh, oh boy, this is a tough one because I'm pretty sure my favorite star for speedrunning has got to be different than my favorite star just playing the game.
Well, let's hear both then.
Speedrunning, it's got to be the one on Snowman Land. The one where normally you would use the cannon to launch yourself across and then do the wall bounces up the thing to get onto the icy platform.
Yeah.
Whereas when I'm speedrunning, I just hop off the side of the cliff and I'm there in seconds. I love that.
Yeah, dude. That's I tried to do that strategy. That was what I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Because I had never seen it been done, I guess, the way that they intended. I've only ever seen you launch yourself and just grab it. And so when I got to that point, I'm like, oh, wait, hang on. I have to figure out how to do this for myself now.
Yeah, the key is, as you're falling, you just kind of got to mentally time it out and then have Mario do a kick in midair so that you get that extra air time.
Oh, it's the kick.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Also, when you're up top, you have to make sure you go left enough so that you don't just fall through the gap at the bottom, because there is a gap down there. You have to go a little bit left and then fall. Mario kicks, pulls into the spot that's down there, and then it's easy enough just to wall bounce your way up.
Sick, dude. I always thought it was just a crouch jump that you kind of end up going backwards on.
Not quite.
I'm going to have to watch you speedrun this game so I can start implementing these dank strats.
Yeah, some of them are like some of the speedrunning strats are really easy but really satisfying, and that's probably why I really got into doing the 16-star run as much as I did. It's because some of it's just fun.
Yeah, I've watched you do the Bowser in the lava lake. Is that the one?
Yeah.
Where you just kind of run along the side and then burn Mario's butt to jump up to the pipe to go fight Bowser.
Yeah.
It's a sweet skip.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. There's a lot of different strategies for that specific part of that specific level, actually. Like, I can think of like 3 strats right off the top of my head that speedrunners will use. It's kind of weird.
Sick, dude. I mean, again, I think that just goes to show, even if it's like accidental, just like the depth of the game. I know you've seen the video "Watch Out for Falling Rocks" by Pan and Koic, right?
I don't think I have.
Get the fuck out! Are you kidding me, bud?
I don't think
I'm gonna send it to you after this recording. Honestly, I'm tempted to just pause the recording, have you watch it, and then come back so we can talk about it. But that's probably not an efficient use of our time, dude. It is wild. This guy uses tool assisted, I guess, techniques to try to complete the game without pressing the A button. So he's gotten the whole run down 120 stars to 1.5 A presses.
Jeez.
Isn't that nuts?
That's very difficult and time consuming.
Yeah, I'm going to send you this video after we're done talking so you can watch it. And everybody out there listening, I definitely suggest you watch it yourself. Just go look up on YouTube, Watch Out for Falling Rocks by Pan and Koic 2012. You will not be disappointed. It is such a trip. So let's talk about the audio in this game, because honestly, it's pretty crispy.
It's good. I would say the game doesn't have a vast amount of soundtrack variety, but the songs that it does have are very iconic.
Right. I think that when everybody thinks of this game, they think of the Babam Battlefield soundtrack, which is the song that we played at the beginning of the episode. But then there's also like the file select, which I love to get stuck in my buddy Colin's head.
Yeah, that's a good one.
For sure. Do you have a favorite track?
As a kid, the one track that really stood out to me from that game more than anything else is the credits song.
Really?
Absolutely. For some reason that like worked its way into my head as like the ultimate like ending of a game song. Like it's just perfect. The way like even like the way that the credits go through and you see all the worlds that you've been playing in, and like I don't know, for me, for child Hayden, that was the perfect ending to a video game you could ever have.
You know, I don't know if I've beaten the game enough times to know what it sounds like, honestly. I might have to go check that out and pop that at the end of the episode today.
Do it. It's a good one.
I will, and I'm looking forward to it. But dude, can we talk about the music in the Bowser levels? I know that's really all I'm interested in talking about today, but they nailed it with those Bowser levels.
Those levels and the soundtrack do a really good job of getting you like hyped.
It really does.
Like you feel, it feels like a like okay, here we go moment. Like
yeah, like this is the real shit. Like now we're in it, you know?
Yeah.
So Koji Kondo did the soundtrack for this game, and you know what? He is 3 for 4 on Game & Went, so maybe it's about time I start doing episodes about non-Nintendo games. But he absolutely crushed it. And just so y'all can hear, I'm going to play a little 10-15 second clip of the music from Bowser in the Dark World. It's just so good. And there's like that, like the Koji Kondo, I forget what it's called. I talked about it in my Super Mario World episode. The Kondo hook, where he plays like a few notes to lead into the song, and then the song just starts the loop. Oh my god, it's so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you feel about like the Dire Dire Docks song, man? Because that is about the opposite of the Bowser music.
I love Dire Dire Docks music, but I hate the level.
Yeah, I think it represents a lot of what you're saying about slowing the game down.
Yes.
The water levels in Mario, while being cool and like, I'm a huge fan of underwater environments in video games in general, as seen by my very controversial love of the Water Temple in Zelda Ocarina of Time. But it's just, yeah, I want to go fast, I want to jump, and you just don't. And then on top of that, you have to worry about holding your breath too? No way.
Yeah, thankfully, at least in Mario 64, the underwater bits are just slow. I don't think it's hard to stay alive because there's typically a lot of coins underwater to replenish your health. But the slowness just bores me to tears. So
yeah, even when you learn to swim fast, it's just like, I'd rather be doing just about anything else.
Yeah.
So let's talk about fighting against Bowser, because that is the big game changer in this game. You're going around, you're picking dudes up, you're throwing them, and then all of a sudden you've got to grab and twirl and toss Bowser. It's not easy.
It's one of the few things that professional speedrunners still screw up, is throwing Bowser.
Why is that?
I remember for a long time, Cheese, like the god of Mario 64 speedrunning in the 120 star category, his world record time he set while missing 2 Bowser throws.
Wow, really?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think that's still the case. I think the world record's been broken since. But I know for a time that that's where it stood. And like at the end of the run, he was like disappointed in himself.
Oh, fuck that. Is that where most speedrunners lose time, is tossing Bowser?
On the 120 star category, I don't know if that's where they lose most of their time, but it's definitely a place where they do still lose time, because it's not enough of a time loss that they'll just instantly reset their run. So it tends to happen.
Right, because I think I've seen you do sub 20 on the 16 star. So how long does the 120 star usually take?
Oh boy. I can't actually remember off the top of my head. That is information that I'm going to have to look up.
That's fine. We can add it in post, which is my way of saying go look it up if you're interested. And then the last thing I really want to talk about as far as what the game brings. Dude, the power-ups, man. The metal cap, the invisible cap, the wing cap.
The wing cap was definitely a childhood favorite for me.
Really? I hate the wing cap.
The idea of flying around was like, it just like expanded the levels so much for me.
Yeah, very true. It does open, it's like, swimming through the sky, except you do get to go fast.
Yeah. That's on.
It's
probably the reason why I love Ace Combat games so much, is because flying around in Mario 64.
The only thing Mario can't do is gun down an enemy F-Hawk or whatever the planes are called.
In Ace Combat?
I don't know. I'm just coming. F-Hawk sounds like it'd be the name of a plane, doesn't it?
I mean, they're all like real life planes for the most part in Ace Combat. So you got like standard military aircraft.
But yeah, the wing cap was fun. Even now, I just can't handle the control of it. It's just hard.
It can be hard. Honestly, it's one of the things that impresses me most with like really talented speedrunners is the level of control they have when using the wing cap. Because they hit crazy speeds when they use it, and they still manage.
And they're doing it on N64 joysticks too, which are not very good.
By the way, I figured out those speedrunning times.
Oh, nice. Let's hear it.
Yeah. So the world record on the 120 star run right now is 1 hour 38 minutes 28 seconds.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I want to watch that. That is so fast.
Yeah. Oh man, Cheese fell down to third place, I guess.
Oof. Sounds like they need to insert cheese pun here. I'm not fast enough to think of that just on the fly, and I'll admit it.
That's a Burbio moment right there. Oh.
So let's round this out. Let's talk about the legacy of Super Mario 64. Obviously, an insanely prolific game, but like, what games have you been playing in your adulthood that are like the grandchildren of this game?
Ooh. That's a tough one. So I'm trying to think of like 3D platformers that are being made more recently. Like, of course, Mario Odyssey.
Yeah.
Right. Mario Odyssey is probably the best 3D platformer that's come out in the past decade.
Yeah, I would go so far as to say that like the Mario 3D titles almost make it difficult to enjoy the other platformers of its peers. Because they're just so clean to play. It's like the other games just don't stack up.
Yeah, it's tough. Like, Yooka-Laylee came out, and people were like, it's okay. And that's not good enough.
There's a lot of hype behind that game.
It's just, okay just really isn't good enough in a world of Mario.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But I also think that kind of goes to, like, show, again, Mario did it first and kind of did it best. Like, you see games where you can just like run away and wall jump and stuff like that, but Mario did that in 1996.
Yeah. I'm like trying to think here. I'm pretty sure the latest Crash game is really good for people who like Crash.
Okay, I haven't played that one, but I'm sure it stole some parts from Mario because the PlayStation 1 was a contemporary of the N64, and that had the original Crash Bandicoot.
Yeah, Crash was basically designed the same way Sonic was, just to be the anti-Mario.
Yeah, right. When everybody was trying to, quote, kill Mario.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, wait, we didn't even talk about the legendary Charles Martinet in his second performance as Mario.
Yeah, he's still going to this day. It's the same guy.
I know, and actually I had the chance to meet him a few years ago, believe it or not.
That is a legendary encounter.
Dude, it was so special. So I was in line at the E3 that I went to was for Breath of the Wild. And the line for Breath of the Wild was so long that they had Charles Martinet walking down the line talking to every single person who wanted to talk to him. That's
a beautiful Nintendo moment.
Dude, it was honestly like one of the best things. Because like he was just giving out autographs on like a signed he was just signing little pictures of Mario and Wario and all the other characters he voices and just handing them to people. And he even took a video of me and he was like, "It's me, Charles Martinet with Super Craig." And he called me Super Craig.
Oh, that's amazing. Nintendo is not the same company these days. It's a shame.
I mean, I think there are glimpses of it, but you know, money rules, man, and so they're gonna do the money thing.
Yeah, I don't know if you've been paying attention to what Nintendo's done in the past, 2 weeks, but it's pretty bad.
They're definitely coloring their PR a little dark these days.
Just a heads up for anybody who has not yet realized this, because Nintendo definitely didn't announce it in any sort of way. Your Switch is now giving information to Google if you own a Nintendo Switch.
I did not know that.
Yes.
I'm going to have to look that up after this episode.
Yeah, if you go into your eShop settings, you can change it so that it stops doing that.
Really?
Yeah, it's buried a little deep, but it's there.
Well, thanks for that announce. Well, yeah, everybody should go probably turn that off then if you're interested. Sick, dude.
Yeah.
But yeah, this has been a really nice chat, man. Like, Super Mario 64 is one of my favorite games, but playing it recently has kind of unfortunately polished away a little of the sheen, and it's become a little more dull. It has not aged as gracefully as I wish it had.
Yeah, this basically comes back to exactly why I only speedrun the 16-star category, because I know that it's the only parts of the game that I enjoy to the fullest extent.
For sure. And so you've given up on getting the grand 100%?
Yeah, it takes too long to do those runs, and it takes me to parts of the game that I don't like as much.
Yeah, like most of it.
I would say, honestly, near half of that game is, not as enjoyable to me, and it definitely feels aged, whereas the other half feels fast and fluid and super enjoyable.
Yeah, I think you kind of pegged it, my man. So, I guess before we wrap it up, let me just ask you this, bud. What other games are you playing these days?
World of Tank. Let's see. I just started playing The Last Campfire,
which I haven't heard of.
It's the small indie game made by the guy who made No Man's Sky.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he did a little side project called The Last Campfire, and so far it's good. It's mostly just a puzzle game, but it's very cute and very sad.
Oh,
so,
that sucks. Why would you do that to me?
Yeah, it's a good game though. Trying to think of what other games that I've really been sinking my teeth into. Mostly I'm just waiting for Cyberpunk and waiting to get my hands on a new computer.
Yeah, I did know that, my man. Well, yeah, I hope you get your hands on Cyberpunk soon. That'll be exciting.
Yeah.
And if people wanted to follow you on social media, I don't know if you're very active on Twitter, but I definitely know you have a Twitch channel.
Twitch is definitely the best thing.
And what's your Twitch channel?
You can find me on Twitch at Haydernator.
And I'll make sure I include that in the episode description so that everybody can see how that's spelled and all that.
Yeah.
But Hayden, my man, I was really looking forward to this episode, and I'm glad to have you on board to help me reboot my short-lived but very impactful podcast.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to having you back.
Very cool. We'll have to figure out which game to talk about next, I guess.
Yeah, man. I'm sure there's no shortage. We'll figure it out. We'll talk.
Yeah.
And for everybody listening, thank you so much. You're always welcome to follow the show on Twitter at GameAndWent. I will be sure to add any prolific and relevant information to the show description. But in the meantime, thank you so much for listening. And as always, don't forget to save.